time for me to firstly welcome you all to Lauraine Diggins Fine Art. My name is Michael Blanche. My late wife Lauraine set this gallery up nearly 50 years ago. Some of you will not have been here before, others like Stephen Bowers, who I'm about to briefly chat about. This is Stephen's 8th exhibition at Lauraine Diggins Fine Art. Stephen and Mark Thompson, Mark over there, came to us earlier in the year and asked whether they could put on a joint exhibition. Little did I realise when they approached us how wonderful the exhibition of two so completely different but highly skilled artists working in ceramics was going to be. I think this exhibition looks absolutely fabulous. The very lengthy documents I have in my hand, I'm not going to read, but what they are the CVs of both Stephen and Mark. It's fair to say that starting with the National Gallery in Canberra, in which they are both included, the list of major public institutions and private collections who own their works is phenomenal. Their very lengthy careers involved in the decorative arts and ceramics in particular are detailed in the documents. I would specifically invite people to read those when they have a chance. What I'm going to do now, however, is to talk to you briefly about the man who's going to tell you all about Stephen and all about Mark. So Dr. Damon Moon is a second generation potter, having originally apprenticed to his father, Milton Moon, AM, at the age of 16. His career has spanned art and industry from the design and manufacture of tableware and architectural components to exhibiting and curating in the field of contemporary art. As one of Australia's most prolific writers and commentators on historical and contemporary ceramics, he has more than 40 published essays, book chapters and other texts to his name, including 28 articles published in the Journal of Australian Ceramics. In 2013, he co-authored Beyond Bravura, The Art of Stephen Bowers, for the Sala series of monographs on South Australian artists published by Wakefield Press. Damon's work is held in several public collections, including the National Gallery of Victoria, the Queensland Museum and Art Gallery, Powerhouse Museum of Arts and Science, the Tasmanian Museum and Art Gallery, and several major regional collections. From 2019 to 2020, Dr. Damon Moon worked with Bendigo Pottery as the founding creative director of the Centre of Learning and Design, where he was involved in education and aspects of product design. From 2014 to 2018, he was the creative director of the Jam Factory Ceramic Studio in Adelaide, South Australia, which has produced so many wonderful ceramicists and so much wonderful art. Damon, it's my pleasure and delight to invite you to stand here and tell us all about Stephen and also Mark. Thank you so much, Damon.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. It's strange to hear those things. I think of myself as a gardener these days. I think it was Johnny Carson who's long time ago at the Academy Awards, and he said to the audience, "You're in for a sparkling 2 hours entertainment over the next 4 hours." So I'm not intending on doing that. And anyway, Stephen has given me a very strict time limit. I think it's 3 minutes. Last time I spoke, it was 5 minutes. It keeps getting shorter. So I'm not actually sure where we'll end up with that. I've been asked to talk about the work, and there's this really unfortunate tendency these days for people to take that to mean, what is the work about? And I have absolutely no intention of addressing that whatsoever. What I would like to do is, I mean, about's a funny word, isn't it? Because it is sort of roundabout. I mean, it's not a very exact work. So I think I'll take my cue from that and just kind of meander a little bit. It's sort of interesting. I mean, when you spent as much time as Stephen and as Mark has, and indeed as I have, being involved in ceramics, looking at ceramics, making ceramics, writing about ceramics, talking about ceramics, whatever, you tend to find that these objects sort of begin to follow you around. You know, it's almost like you're being stalked by ceramics. Just on the way, I live in southwest Victoria, so on the long drive up this morning, I kept on getting these texts arrive on the phone, and so periodically I'd pull over and, you know, Colac and Winchelsea and whatever, and stretch my legs, and it was someone sending me texts. I'm actually not sure where they live, but it was, and it happens to me quite a lot, about identifying work, and particularly identifying my father's work. But they were also talking about another work that they owned, which was, and this is the South Australian connection again, I would say, which was made by a person called Alex Leckie, who now is a figure from history, but he was very well known, and he was very important, and he was working in Adelaide in, I think, as early as the late 50s, but certainly into the early 60s. And during that time, he made a work which was one of, it's either 3 or 4 works, which were chosen to be part of this major international exhibition of ceramics which was held in Tokyo. And the who's who of the world's studio ceramics were in this exhibition. And a few people were chosen from Australia, and my father was one of them, and Alex Leckie was one of them. And I'm pretty sure that the work that was sent to that exhibition, because I do have the catalogue, or rather now the Art Gallery of South Australia's got the catalogue, but I did have the catalogue. I'm pretty sure that this collector has that work, which is a very interesting thing. And it was very interesting to hear on my way up, driving up here. It's these very long histories that ceramics tend to have. And it's quite scary because you look at the work and you think, well, yes, you know, with good luck in the following wind, in 5,000 years' time, they're still going to be around. The history of the work that you see here, and I must admit to not having read what else has been written about it on this occasion, but the history of this work here to me belongs to industry. So we are looking at something which has been made within the studio ceramics tradition, which is essentially a 20th century phenomena into the 21st century of artist craftspeople working alone, essentially, and making their work. This is ceramics that is sundered from industry. And yet, historically, what you were seeing and the phenomenal level of skill that has been applied to this work was something that was actually found in collective enterprises. So you would have the person that drew the particular flower, and you would have the person that modeled the beak on the bird, or you would have all of these people would come together under the guidance of a designer, and this work would be made in the great European but also Asian ceramics manufacturers. So I'm quite serious in saying that what you were seeing a couple of hundred years ago is the sort of skill levels that you would see in places like Meissen or Limoges or Spode or any of the great ceramics manufacturers. It's always sort of struck me as odd that we never in Australia ever developed that kind of work. I mean, I have worked in what passes here for the remaining ceramics manufacturing industries, but we never actually made the fine porcelain works, the highly decorated works. It more was just the vernacular pieces that we made, and other things were imported. So I'm not exactly sure then how the work arose, particularly in the context of South Australia in a certain era, because there is someone else, and I don't think Stephen and Mark would mind me mentioning this, but there is another maker of their era in South Australia, a man called Bruce Nuske. And together, I would say those three individuals do what no one else really can do in this country in terms of manipulating ceramics. I mean, it is of that level. It's quite extraordinary work. The time that the work developed was associated with the advent of so-called funk ceramics, a sort of a style of sculpture of ceramics that came from the west coast of America. And there are comparisons made between this work and funk ceramics. I, again, tend to see less of that and more of an individual vision of people who look back further in time, who look back 100 years and who look back 200 years to what you would really say was the heyday of those great European ceramics manufacturers. I think that in funk ceramics, one of the essential characteristics is that of parity. But I would think that parity always diminishes in the face of consummate skill, because you are essentially looking at something that isn't a piss take, but it is actually very, very seriously intended and very, very skillfully done. I have probably gone way, way past the allocated time now. I really can't think of anything else I should say about the work now that you would not be better off informed by talking to the artists who are present today. It's my great pleasure, I feel like I'm not worthy, to declare the exhibition open. Thank you for coming.
I want to say one thing. I want to thank Damon's dad, who was my first ceramics lecturer. And because of Milton, I rebelled against him. His brilliant teaching. He taught me how to work with clay. And then as a result of that, and as a result of the fact this was the 60s, and we were all rebellious. And anyone older than us had to be rebelled against. Just a matter of course. So Milton and I spent 30 years tussling. I was this smart-ass kid, and Milton was at the top of the game. And I was in awe of him, but I rebelled. And he taught me how to make pots. And once I thought I knew how to make a pot, I thought, I don't need to make any more pots. I want to make something useless that will be functional. And it's because of your dad I'm here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe a very quick anecdote, I suppose an anecdote, maybe an illustration. I mean, the difference we've got too is that Mark is sculptural, he's figurative, and mine is really about illustration and painting. So he's got the fat art and I've got the flat art. And you can tell the difference between visual art and craft, because craft you have the dust, So, we settled those questions. Another question, though, is that there are two artists in here, one of whom went through a training school, one of whom went through university, and one of whom didn't. I'm the didn't, and Mark is the did. So, you've got this wonderful overlap. As Damon so eloquently pointed out, when you go into the deep dive in what we do, both of us are steeped in a love of history, of the techniques, of the workers who created in the factories, who worked with materials, who did it at the bench, a team from children, women and men, all combining to create this stuff. Ceramics has got an amazing legacy of that. In Australia, we sort of bypassed us. There were industrial ceramics here, but nowadays the inheritors of all that legacy are the individuals like Mark and myself and several others who literally mine that historical ground footprint, and we are grateful for that, and it enriches what we do. We hope that it creates more enjoyment for the viewers who can come and absorb that. So that's enough for me.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you very much for those wonderful words on Mark and Stephen. Lauraine Diggins Fine Art is a Scotsman's ill-supported and supportive gallery, and it's my pleasure to present you with a bottle of Scotsman's Hill's finest Shiraz in memory of those wonderful words.
Thank you.
Thank you.